Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Shayla Kummer. Shayla is a metaphysician and consciousness business coach who empowers individuals to align with their true purpose through her brand, Lionessencee. She focuses on helping clients achieve personal mastery and spiritual growth, enabling them to launch impactful brands and business. With a self-made entrepreneurial spirit, Shayla aims to inspire humanity and has built an online community of over 180,000 followers, serving clients in 14 countries. Holding a bachelor's degree in metaphysics, she combines her academic knowledge with a passion for personal development to equip others in realizing their unique gifts and making a meaningful difference in the world. Shayla Kummer, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So we're happy to have you and to be able to learn everything that you're going to share with us about tarot, how you got into that, metaphysics, and building a business around all of that. Let's do a once upon a time in the very beginning of where Shayla came from and who you are and who you help.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Once upon a time, I have to start my story by, I guess, disclaiming that I feel like I came out of the womb seeking. As young as I could remember, I was very curious about the meaning of life, how we're here, what does it all mean? What's my place and my role in life? I was born in North Platte, Nebraska, very small town, whitewashed culture. I was raised essentially inside of the standard American box. And there was always something in my soul that said that there was more. So if we look at this from like the clairs, from a metaphysical perspective, this was me tapping into clairsentience, which was my intuitive ability to feel. So yeah, from as young as I could remember, I was like experimenting with my intuition without necessarily knowing that this was my intuition. Um, I was raised in the Christian church, went to Catholic school until ninth grade. So I had a heavy religious background, and everybody in my life made sure to let me know that things like tarot and astrology, yoga, these are bad. This is like straight from the devil. You cannot dive into anything of the sort. Um, I'm naturally a little rebellious. So when everybody around me was like, oh, like, these things are bad, I'm like, huh, why do you think these things are bad? I'd like to experiment. So I had a psychedelic mushroom experience at the age of 15. Way too young. I would not recommend anybody do that at that age. But it was the catalyst for me to have that experience of connecting with things beyond what we can see with our physical eyes. And after that experience, I went down the rabbit hole. I started doing research. I'm like, okay, this intuitive feeling that I have that there is more, I think it's true. I think this is right. Like, how can I tap into this? How can I explore this realm without having to take magic mushrooms? And I was introduced to yoga and meditation from my high school sweethearts. She was a huge influence in my spiritual awakening, and she taught yoga at the time. And she's like, Shayla, I really think that you would enjoy yoga. Like, you should come to some of my classes. And I started going to some of her classes, and I fell in love, not just with the physical component of yoga, but I started to notice what was happening in my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, this anxiety that I've been struggling with like my entire childhood is like finally easing. So that's another huge component of my journey. I don't talk to my mom, so there's a lot of childhood trauma there. Never felt safe being myself. I felt like a shell of me. And I was like, this doesn't feel like the right way to live. So that, I guess, it was fuel to my fire to continue to explore. Fast forward, I decided that I was going to move to Boulder, Colorado, because that's where hippies are and people think outside of the box in
Right.
Colorado. I was studying traditional Eastern arts and environmental studies at Europa University. Everything was fine and dandy until I came into contact with my childhood trauma for the first time, like consciously. I realized that I didn't have the same childhood as most people did. And my roommates, they get phone calls from their mom. Their mom's, oh my gosh, like how's school? And I have nothing, no contact from my mom. And so I started to come into contact with these really painful feelings, and it was getting in the way of me being able to learn, to comprehend any sort of new information that I was learning in school. So I was really struggling. I was really struggling. And around that time, I came into contact with a book by James Redfield, The Celestine Prophecy. And it did something to my brain, like something clicked. I was like, whoa, I'm not the only one that feels like they're on this like quest to figure out the truth. So I really dove deep into his work, and I was asking, I was seeking. I'm like, God, like, why am I here? Why did I go through all of this? I feel like I'm being called to leave college to learn essentially from the school of hard knocks first before I figure out what I want to do with my life. And speaking to entrepreneurship, I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. That was just, it was very clear, but I wanted my work to be aligned with why my soul was on the planet. Not just, all right, I'm going to go out into the economy and try to make some money. No, my mindset was always, I got to figure out like what my specific gifts and talents are and how I can go out and make real impact in the world while also supporting myself and making money. So, anyways, at 18, I decide I'm leaving college and I'm moving to the middle of the desert off grid. I had never heard of Taos, New Mexico. I knew nothing about off grid living. Yeah, I was just like, I got this opportunity and we're going to pursue it. And lo and behold, because I was not, my childhood trauma was still there and not processed. The wounds are open and I'm seeking. So I'm a hot mess at this point in my life and dove right into an extremely narcissistic, abusive relationship. And this lasted for a couple of years. The best way for me to describe that experience was like being a soldier coming home from war, but nobody believing me when I told them that I was coming home from war. I didn't have the words to describe the pain that I had gone through. It took me a couple of years to really be able to sit with the fact that I was abused on every possible level, while I'm also still trying to find myself and find my place in the world. After about 2 years, I was able to escape the relationship, like quite literally had to run out the back door at 5 o'clock in the morning and go get the cops so I could leave. He had tried to kill me a couple of times. Like it was a very intense situation. And when I finally got out, I was like, oh, okay, wow, we made it. Now we need to heal. And I have to do everything that I can possibly do to ensure that I then go back out into the world and I'm a force. I'm a force of good. I'm a force of healing. I'm doing my part in ensuring that other people don't have to suffer like I had to suffer alone with nobody to talk to, not knowing what was happening. The only place I felt safe was being off grid. It's, yeah, funny how trauma works. Like that's where I was abused, but I didn't want to be anywhere but off grid, away from everybody. So this is really when I dove into tarot and astrology, and like my seeking went next level. um, I was also in a lot of pain, and there were moments where I didn't want to keep going. It was just too hard. I was carrying so much weight. And there was a day I remember I was sitting in my car outside of a shack, like a literal shack. The south facing wall does not exist. There's no wood burning stove. I don't have running water, a literal shack. It was getting cold and wintertime was coming. I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. This is hard. This sucks. And I went and sat in my car and I put my hands on my steering wheel and just put my head down. And I was like, God, if you're real, I need you to come to me right now and show me. I need a sign because I can't do this. I can't do this alone. And right when I put my head on my steering wheel, I was overcome with what I would call the presence of the Holy Spirit. And I just felt, oh my gosh, okay, you know what? Everything is actually going to be okay. I have faith. I have faith. And from that moment forward, I was like, all right, we're not going back. Like ending life, that's not an option. We have to figure this out because I know that there's a lot of other people that are struggling with similar situations or similar feelings or experiences that I was. Yeah. So I devoted myself to my craft, started practicing tarot, and I had no one really to guide me. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd pull cards for myself and I'd ask, what do I need to know for the day ahead? And then I just observe, do my research, figure out like what the certain cards meant. And then I would go about my day and I would be in observation mode where I was like, okay, I pulled these certain cards this morning and they mean XYZ. How is this playing out in my life? So through experimentation, I was able to, I guess, find my own relationship with the cards and yeah, use it as a way to pull through intuitive information. Now, as we're talking about tarot, there's many different ways to use tarot, and there's a lot of people that use them to predict the future. And you can do that. But if we're looking at a human being from a place of acknowledging our authentic power, our future timelines depend on where we're sending our energy, what we're focusing on, the actions, the choices that we're making in the present moment. So I like to use tarot as a tool to highlight what's going on internally, externally, to put me in a position of power to be able to navigate the energies moving forward. 2 years of this, just living nomadically. I bounced from the forest to the shack in the middle of the desert. I'd go back to Nebraska for a little bit of a break to be on the grid. That's obviously where my family is still. I think in 2018, I was living in the forest and I could feel I was getting closer, getting closer. Like I can't see this path, but I feel like we're getting closer. I woke up one morning. It was so beautiful. I was just like on cloud nine for no real apparent reason. I was just happy to be alive, which was also a powerful place to be given everything that I had been through. And I heard,
I'm picturing you with a flower in your hair, just frolicking through the forest.
yeah, I would do that. Yeah. Play in the river, just
Yeah.
like sit with the trees. Yeah. That was my
Talk
happy
talk
place.
talk to the animals and use them as a therapist. It's great.
It is. And actually, if you're open to like actually communicating with animals or trees, like you can have conversations. They'll share information with you.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff, especially with the trees, where it's something that you don't feel pulled to it until you're ready to experience it.
Mm.
And then you can put your hand on a tree and it's almost co-regulating in that process where you can feel your nervous system really start to slow down a little bit. So you'll be in this activated state where you feel like all this stress and frustration and irritation of the world that you're in. And then you're giving yourself that opportunity to actually ground in that moment with another living thing. It's very co-regulating in that process. But if you're really keyed into nature, you'll start to experience some different types of thoughts and emotions and feelings. And you might even see something for me that came up was like a flip book where you see these images floating by and you have to determine what those things actually mean to you in this moment and how you can use that information. So there's a lot of things that many of us don't necessarily understand. We just know that we've had experiences and we try to make some sort of meaning out of it for us.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Coming back to Forest Story, I woke up one morning and one of my clients, Kyle Wilson, he calls these God whispers. And so I'm going to call it a God whisper. I heard spirit say, Shayla, you're ready. And I like freaked out. I'm like, what? No, I'm just a nobody. Like, I don't have anything, no material possessions. I was still identifying myself as being a hot, traumatized mess, even though I had made a whole lot of progress. And I heard that voice again, Shayla, you're ready. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. This means that I'm being called to go launch a YouTube channel and start sharing the gifts that I had come into contact with and the information that I did have, specifically tarot with the collective. And actually, it was a random tarot reading that I found on YouTube. I didn't even know that was a thing. That was the catalyst for me, like finally running away from that very toxic, abusive relationship. This random woman on the internet was like, honey, I know you think that this is the one, but like this man is super dangerous and he is not who you think he is. And that was what my intuition was telling me in that situation, but I wasn't it was really difficult for me to lean into what my intuition was telling me. So, yeah, that was about a week after hearing that reading, that's when I essentially left. So I had that in the back of my mind as I was out seeking and exploring. I was like, how can a random woman like serve as such a huge catalyst to me getting out of something so toxic? I want to learn how to do that. And then when I figure it out, I'm devoting my life to doing just that. So people, again, don't have to suffer in silence like I did for so long. Yeah. And so I went back to Nebraska and I launched my YouTube channel, started reading tarot. Now, suddenly people are like, oh my gosh, Shayla, can I send you money? Like, I'd love to work with you. And I'm like, what is going on? This is insane. okay, I should probably learn about business. I should probably figure out how to get a website and have a way for people to book with me. So, like those first couple of years working with people one on one, they'd be like, "Hey, can I book with you?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, pause. Let me go build a website, get
Yeah.
the booking platform in place. Here you go." Okay. And so my clients helped me build my business based off of what it was that they wanted. Yeah. And from there, I was on YouTube for a couple of years and I felt like I could be doing more. And I also felt like I was ready to expand my knowledge base of what I was doing. It was so weird for me because people, they'd be like, "Shayla, this is so amazing. You literally read my life. I can't believe you did this." And for me as a reader, I'm just like, "Oh, really? Wow, that's really fascinating." I'm just talking. It feels very much so like second nature to me. So I had a few clients invite me to Santa Fe. They wanted to work with me in person. And I said yes. So I went back to New Mexico from Nebraska and gave like a 4-hour reading and made $888 that day. That was like the most money I had ever made in my career. I was again, oh my gosh, what's going on? They ended up asking me to house sit a multi-million dollar mansion in Santa Fe while they went back to Florida where they lived. And that was like the first time in my entire life I had been so secure in my physical life. Like from 18, I'd been moving around, lived very nomadically. And so I was like, okay, use this as an opportunity to further our studies, further our education. So I can show up and be, I guess, just have more tools in my toolkit going out and serving people. So that's when I started studying metaphysics through Sedona University. Yeah. And shortly after that, I kept hearing that God whisper again to get on TikTok. And I was very resistant to getting on TikTok because I thought people just danced on the app back in the
Right.
beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I heard signs from so many different directions. It's very clear I'm being asked to get on TikTok. And TikTok exploded really fast for me. I think within the first month, I had like 30,000 followers and a whole calendar full of people who wanted to work with me. So
That's awesome.
that's, yeah, that was that was the start. And that was a lot of ramble. So I'll pause there.
No, you're good. No, I think it's great when you started out in the very beginning because you're talking about the experiences that maybe potentially you had in the womb or very early on. And that's generally when our attachment style is formed. But it's also, you're born with all of this joy and peace that's already inside of you. It's the gift that you're giving to the world from the moment that you enter into this plane. And then life happens and challenges happen. And very slowly but surely, we lose sight or we never really feel that joy for ourselves, that experience of that peace. And so you're 5, 6, 7 years old and you're sitting there and you've lost your joy. And then it can take decades and sometimes a lifetime for you to be able to tap into that childlike wonder and to experience that joy again for yourself. But it takes doing all the things that you've done, all of these really difficult, challenging things by going into your trauma, doing the shadow work, putting in the effort, taking the time, working on your healing, allowing yourself to explore. And then and I don't like saying on the other side because this is a lifetime of work that it's always going to be continuing on, but you do get to this place where you begin to see others quite differently and you can relax a little bit. You learn to feel safe within yourself,
Mm.
in your container, and how you relate to others. But then you also tap into this other power, which is your no, both NO and KNOW, right? You have this inner
Mm.
no, this intuition, this capability to be able to look at others and experiences and understand that, you know what, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. I don't know what's going on, but and I can't read into it completely because I can't read the other person's mind, but I know that somatically I'm having an experience and I have to say no to this situation and dive a little bit deeper and allow myself to get curious and ask some deeper questions about what is the other person experiencing? What are they going through? What's happening right now? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And because it doesn't make sense, I feel like there's something wrong with me, that I did something wrong, that I should feel shame and guilt and all of these other emotions that are actually going on with the other person. Now, it's twofold because you're feeling your own shame on top of that and guilt and other experiences on top of what they're going through as well. And then it creates this dynamic that is really difficult to get yourself out of. So the fact that you were able to pull yourself out of such a negative situation for you speaks volumes to just the resilience that you've been able to build inside of yourself. And so I want to dive a little bit deeper into that for a second. Just what were some of the things that you did to help pull yourself out of that relationship that you might think is going to be helpful to others that are listening to this today?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one, most powerful practice that I have still to this day is my yoga and my meditation practice. And in that relationship, my yoga mat was really the only place that I felt safe. It was like everything around me does not exist except what's happening internally within me. So I think also like giving myself the space to not be normal after that relationship was exactly the medicine that I needed. Meaning, like, I didn't just go out and get a normal 9 to 5 job and go play the rat race like everybody told me I should do. They're like, oh, you're out of this relationship. Like, you need to go start building your life and doing something. And my intuition was like, no, you need to sit with what happened to you. You've been functioning in fight or flight for a very long time, and you deserve space to simply be. So something I really struggled with was judging my emotions, like, oh, I should be over this, or I should be further along, or like something's wrong with me for attracting this situation into my life. So yeah, a lot of my healing too was finding the ability to simply accept everything that had happened, to accept the emotions that I'm experiencing, and also not to put a time limit on like how long it was going to take for me to be able to heal, to be able to just be like, yeah, this may take me 10 years. I may be dealing with this for 10 years, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's always everybody's first question is how long is this going to take?
Yeah.
The answer is it takes as long as it takes. It takes you will only ever be able to meet yourself to the level of personal development and work that you've done on yourself. And it's such a huge challenge to sit back and make that observation and to recognize that, you know what? Yeah, some days are going to be really hard, but then there's going to be some really good days. And when you have those good days, it's you have to take the time and the opportunity to sit back and be able to recognize that, you know what, in this moment, this is the only moment that's ever going to exist is the moment that I'm in right now, the moment that I'm in with you. Right now, I'm in this place of peace and I'm enjoying this moment. We're having this really great conversation and we're getting to share this experience with each other and get to know each other a little bit better. We're sharing pieces of our background with one another. And what a great opportunity this is to get to know another human being and to get curious about your experiences and who you are and where you come from and what you're all about. And we have to be able to do that not just for ourselves, right? To dive into ourselves, but then to get to know other people in that process because we're wired for connection. And I know everybody's favorite thing right now is I don't need this and I don't need that, but we need each other, whether you like it or not.
We do. We do. Yeah. That was a tough pill for me to swallow as well, because there was a time where I pendulum swung to the other side where I was hyper independent. Oh,
It's
I
an
don't need
easy place to
anybody.
get to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Until I fell off the mountain that I was on and realized that, huh, I can't really do life alone, nor do I want to. Connection is so beautiful. And also, I think with experiencing trauma in relationships, the way to heal isn't to isolate. We need time and space alone to ourselves. But for me, I found true healing in allowing myself to reconnect with other humans, to be brave enough to put myself in situations where I could be curious about somebody else's experience and how I'm going to respond to somebody else's experience. I relate to that.
What would be some things that you would tell someone who's trying to reintegrate themselves into society after having been isolated for a while? They went on their healing journey. Maybe they did some shadow work and some inner child healing and they pushed through and now they're ready to show the world, here I am, this new healed version of myself. How can I reintegrate myself into the world?
I think the first thing I would tell somebody who is reintegrating is wear your scars as badges of honor. It's so easy to like judge ourselves and try to pretend like that didn't happen after we heal. I went through this a lot where I finally got myself on an even playing field. And then there was a part of me that like didn't want to acknowledge all of the pain and all of the suffering that I had went through, almost like sweeping it under the rug. That's not the way to go. I realized, no, that's my victory story. Like, that's amazing. My story is also an avenue. It's a roadmap for somebody who maybe is still struggling where I used to be. So, yeah, I wrote an ebook. It's currently being revised, but it's called From Trauma to Treasure. And it's all about how we can turn those like super painful experiences that we've gone through into our most valued treasure, into our strengths, our gifts, our talents, the way that we can go out and make the world a better place. I would say don't be afraid of like owning the pain, owning the experiences that you've undergone. Yeah, wear it with honor.
How'd you come up with that title?
It just hit me, an intuitive download. I have when I dropped out of college, another God whisperer was, Shayla, you're supposed to write a book. And I'm 18 at this time. And I'm like, there's no way. I don't know what I would write about. And then I drop out of school and move off grid. And this crazy storyline unfolds in my life. So it's always been in the back of my mind. Okay, yeah, I will eventually write a book about my experiences. And I think it was almost 2 years ago, I just got this feeling took over me. You're ready to write the book. And I'm like, this is insane. Okay, let me just put the outlines together really quick. And then, yeah, that it happened like snap of a finger. And I wrote most of it in a 3-day time span, just channeled the information. And it's also how the title came about. Just hit me.
So
Trauma.
did you change everybody's names?
That's why it's not out again. I'm revising because we need to change some things.
Yeah.
Great names. Yeah.
No, that's funny.
Yeah.
Tell us more about Sedona University and metaphysics for those of us that just we need a 101 crash course on what this is, what it looks like, what do you study, what's the intention behind it?
Yeah. Sedona University, it's an online school. So you can go study, get your bachelor's degree in metaphysics like I did from anywhere. Metaphysics essentially is the study between the physical and the non physical, physical reality and then spiritual reality, and how the two intertwine. Like the saying, as above, so below, that's essentially a great umbrella to understand essentially what metaphysics is. So we have a lot of different tools available to us to tap into the other realm. And science has also shown us that like physical reality is only like 0.001% of all that really is. Like empty space is 99.99% of this reality. I started studying law of attraction and really just trying to understand the science of these spiritual practices and principles that had completely changed my life. I think first for me, it was really liberating knowing that I wasn't crazy with this religious background. Everybody's like, you're working with the devil. Like, this is horrible. You can't be doing this. But again, my intuition was like, no, I'm not working with the devil. Like, my intention is to bring love, to bring light, to channel good energy onto this planet. And the only entity, so to say, I'm connecting to is God. One of the other laws of metaphysics is the law of one. Like everything in existence at its core, if we're to like surpass the particles and the waves, and we look at the subatomic particles of all of existence, all of these subatomic particles are one. They come from the same source. So yeah, it was really enlightening for me to again understand on a more intellectual level like what spirituality is. And a lot of people are like, yeah, no, it's just woo. Like, you guys are crazy. Love one. We're all one. Like, yeah, the hippies, I get it. But no, there's truth to that. What I do in my own personal life affects everything around me and vice versa. And I think this is a really cool concept when we're also thinking about like the amount of people that are waking up right now to their inherent power, right? Again, we're only using like 10% of our brain capacity. What about the other 90%? And this is just my perspective. But I think that when we tap deeper into the intuition, deeper into our sixth sense, we're activating parts of that 90% of the brain that scientists just said is gray matter, doesn't matter, doesn't we don't know. We're not going to look deeper into that. Which is really exciting to think about as well, because there are some human beings that have done incredible things on this earth with only understanding like a limited portion of our brain. Like, what's going to happen in 10, 20 years as we all start to really awaken to the power that we
Oh
inherently
no,
hold?
we're all gonna be robots by then.
I hope not.
We'll be fully integrated with technology.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting thought. It got to
Mm.
take over. Yeah.
Yeah, but you never know.
You never know.
What is the law of attraction and is it real?
Law of attraction, is it real? Yes, law of attraction is real. Essentially, the law of attraction states that like what you think about is what you're going to attract into your reality. I'm going to take that a step further. The energy that we feel, the vibration that I'm currently at. So if I'm feeling love right now, I'm really in love with life, everything is great. I am sending out a frequency of love into the universe. The universe is going to match the frequency that I'm sending out. Now I'm going to create this vortex of love energy. It's the same thing. This is why it's so easy to spiral. We're stuck in a trauma cycle. I am just feeling all of this shame and guilt. I'm spiraling down. I'm sending out a vibration to the universe. I am feeling shame. I am feeling guilt. And the universe is also going to essentially bring that back. Again, Hermetic principle, as within, so without. So Abraham Hicks' book, what is it called? Ask and It Is Given. This is a really great resource for people if you're interested in really diving into the law
Good.
of attraction. Have you read it?
Hmm.
Yeah, great.
I
I'm
used to
reading.
listen to Abraham Hicks every day for a year and a half. I
Okay.
loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. When I first saw Abraham Hicks, it was like, wait, have I heard this before? And I was like, no, I know I have not heard this information before, but I feel it.
It feels like
Um,
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that when humans come into contact with universal truth, there is that feeling of, oh, I feel like I know this because what we're hearing is activating something that's already within us.
Yeah, it's interesting because so we have this energy, we put it out into the world. And if I'm an angry person, I'm angry all the time, I'm going to continue to receive all the things that will always make me angry so that I can perpetuate this cycle of my way of being. And so you have to find a way to interrupt that pattern in your life. And that comes with grace and gratitude, forgiveness, and a whole host of other things that if you can allow yourself to go through that experience, which takes a lot of work and diving into you got to have an actual practice of gratitude where you can look around in your environment and your world and your experiences and your past experiences of all the things that you are thankful for having, whether it's good or bad, and then begin to understand how did this shape me, how did this form me, how did this impact my life, whether it was negative or positive, and how can I prevent or mitigate some of these things in the future by acting differently.
Mm.
And it becomes a predictor of your future with the energy that you're putting out into the world. Because if you're putting all of this out at one time, then that's what you're going to receive back. People are always going to feel how you feel about you. So if you walk into a room and people have an experience of you as a person, and some people brighten up the room, and other people, they dim the light of the room just by their own presence. And so when you understand that and you experience that, you get to challenge it and say, you know what, I want to show up a little bit differently. I recognize that on some days I'm going to have a really rough day and it's going to be tough. And that's why we create all of these systems for ourselves that help us navigate all these challenging experiences and emotions, thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we're going through. And you give yourself the opportunity to use things like breath work, to use things like journaling so that you can get through all of these other emotions, get it out, use these tools that have been given to you so that you can start to push yourself and create momentum in the direction that you actually want to go, which is this place of abundance and happiness and joy and love. And it sounds woo wooey, but you're really in more control than you believe that you are. You just haven't experienced it yet. Again, it's really easy to get back to this low vibration place of like anger, frustration, irritation, sadness, loneliness, depression than it is to elevate ourselves and move into that place of happiness, joy, love, and peace.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Beautifully said. Another thing too, like some people struggle with the concept of believing law of attraction because like they'll think the right thoughts or they'll send out positive energy for a second or a day and then they're like, yeah, but wait, like why isn't it working like the thing? And this is where trauma work comes into place, right? We're like, first of all, it's going to take time in order for us to change the vibrational frequency that we're sending out into the universe. But also, if I have unprocessed childhood trauma in the back of my brain that I don't even know is there, right? Like I'm sending out not only the frequency that I consciously want to emit, but whatever's happening in my subconscious is also going to be affecting the reality that I'm experiencing. And so I know I went through that a lot when I was trying to heal. I'm like, why is my life so hard? What is going on?
That's that victim consciousness that so many of us find ourselves in. We continue that same statement over and over again. This is hard. Life is hard. This sucks. I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Until we regain our power. And oh, and the fact that, yeah, if I'm saying life is going to be hard, again, the universe is going to respond to that frequency and make my life hard. Not because the universe hates me, but because that's how the universe works.
But
Yeah.
that's what we think, like, the universe is conspiring against me, like, why is everything against me all the time? And it's, no, nothing's actually really against you. That's just your perception of the events that have occurred. You can actually look at these events a little bit differently. I understand when it comes from this place of trauma, we can't escape this world without acquiring our own negative experiences or these activations inside of us that we struggle with. But you have to get to the place where you accept that is something that occurred. It's a part of your life, but it doesn't have to be the rest of your life.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And from acceptance, now the work really becomes being in the vibration of allowing. So, like when
And
that anger
oh,
comes up,
that's so hard.
yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's our work.
Yeah.
That is that is our work. Yeah. To allow life to unfold. If I'm feeling anger, I had a lot of anger issues growing up as a child. So this was something struggled with a lot. Rage would just take over me. So what I had to learn to do is notice right when the anger comes up. Become aware. Okay, you're feeling angry. Okay, I'm not gonna if I try to resist this anger, I'm just going to get more frustrated. And I'm going to think about all the reasons why my anger is valid. Or I could accept that I'm feeling this anger and I can allow it to flow through me. Couple of breaths here. Okay, now what do I want to feel? I'm feeling this anger. I would like to feel maybe relief. So, can I bring my vibration up just a little bit? Abraham Hicks also talks about this. We can't start from the bottom of the ladder and expect ourselves to get to the top of the ladder, which would be like moving from grief to enlightenment in the snap of a finger. It doesn't work like that. It's not sustainable growth. We have to move in increments. So when I'm angry, can I think thoughts that are going to bring in momentary relief? Okay, now that I'm not angry, I'm feeling a little bit of relief. Can I keep elevating my thoughts? Can I keep changing my thoughts to move up that ladder to feel an energy that feels aligned with me or with where I want to be, what I want to feel?
I've been in the middle of listening to this book. It's called Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy. And he gets into this place where he talks about anger and resentment and how to relieve that pressure valve that's inside of us. When it comes to anger, it's one of those things that you relieve through your hands and through your voice. So screaming into a pillow, great way to get rid of that excess energy that's inside of you. And then they were talking about this man with his son, and his son very angry for whatever reason, young teenage boy, all those things that are going on in that child's world. It gave him a bag of nails and a hammer and a piece of wood to drive the nails into. And after he did the bag of nails, he drove them into the board. How do you feel? I actually feel pretty good and ready to move on with your life. And it's why things like boxing and jujitsu and all these other things are going to be beneficial for you because you're getting it out through your hands. And in that process, you're also learning that you can manage your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You can get through anger, rage, and frustration. It doesn't have to own you in that regard. You can actually allow yourself to process it, and you don't have to store it and ignore it and allow it to eat you up and destroy you and then turn on those genes inside of you that create that dis-ease.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Brian Tracy, that keeps coming up in my reality. Thank you for mentioning that. I have
Really?
a yeah, one of my clients, he huge in entrepreneurship marketing world and worked directly with Brian Tracy and just sent me a bunch of books. And Brian Tracy's books are in the package I just received from Kyle to
Yeah,
dive deeper into. So
Maximum Achievement, it is so good. It is written years ago. Older dude. It's just really interesting to me that all these books have always been around, and then you can only come across information when you're ready to receive it. It gets presented to you at the different times when you're ready and you're prepared to take that information and then deploy it in real time. One of the things that I love most about you and what you've done and what you've told me here today is that you're someone who doesn't hesitate to dive into self education, which is something that I talk so much about because we get into this place of victim consciousness that everything is happening to me. And we get very frustrated with the life that we're living. Things are never going to work out. It's never going to be what I want. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. All of these things. And you don't realize for whatever reason, you have these core beliefs that they're not yours. They were given to you, but now you've made them yours and it's part of your operating system. And you have to do something to change that. You need that pattern interrupt. And the interrupt is going to be self education. At this point in life in 2024, there's no reason that you can't hop on social media, hop on YouTube, get all of this free psychology today. There's so much information that's out there that's going to benefit you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You just have to take the time to do the little search and then start reading and listening and then taking notes and writing and realize that you can take in all this information and then deploy it in your life
Mhm.
in real time and use that information to grow yourself in new and different ways that you didn't even think was possible. That's how people are succeeding. But you have to believe, you have to bet on yourself and know that you're capable of doing that.
Yes, absolutely. Self study, that was a huge catalyst to me believing in myself and being able to take myself out to social media. In the toxic abusive relationship at 18, I forgot how to smile. I didn't know who I was. Like, just we're talking below rock bottom. The buildup was, it was quite an experience. But I mentioned the smile thing because I just didn't talk. I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. I was just silent, mute. But I was also observing everything that was happening around me. But there was a huge throat chakra block. Like, I just didn't feel like I deserve to take up space or like people would even care if I opened my mouth and started speaking. I don't remember. It was when I was in Santa Fe, yeah, and I started studying metaphysics, like the science of spirituality, where I was like, whoa, this is so amazing. Okay, I'm like adding more tools to my toolkit. I really want to dive deep into my own education because I did drop out of school when I was 18. And I've always loved learning and love learning. I was listening to one of Tony Robbins' training seminars 2000, the beginning of the year. I'm not doing so hot, emotionally speaking. The relationship I was in then was showing me where I needed to heal and highlighting childhood wounds that I had not fully processed yet. But I was trying still. I'm like, we've got to do something different to get out of this cycle because I know that I could be up here doing things, helping more people. And Tony Robbins was like, yeah, I just decided I'm going to read 100 books. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that too. That sounds like a really great idea. So, January 2022, I set the goal to read 100 books. I have not reached 100 books, but we've read 93 books. And honestly, that's how I've gotten myself to where I am. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like when people were coming in asking for readings and wanting to work with me one on one, I'm like, okay, here's the next step. I need to create a website and booking platform for them. It's the same thing with things that I don't know. If there's something I want to learn about, go get a book about it. I don't absorb information through podcasts. I can't do it. But if I'm reading, that this book is going to become a part of my psyche. And yeah, I'm a huge advocate for reading as well. And it ties back into we don't really know what we're capable of doing. Like we're
Yeah.
only using 10% of brain capacity.
It's funny that you mention can't learn from podcasts. So the way my brain works, and people think I'm nuts, but I have to put it on a 1.75 or 2 in order so the speed at which they're speaking. So once I bump up the speed, I'm good to go. And I can sit there and I can listen all day long. But it's those if you play it on a 1, which is normal speed, it's just like, it's too slow for me. I can't keep up. I'm not tracking. I'm not taking in the information. I might take a sentence here and there. I zone out. I go someplace else. But if it's on a 2, it's like, giddy up. Let's go.
I'll try that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a contributing force. Yeah,
I, I
for
don't
sure.
know, but it was one of those things one and I used to listen to podcasts all the time at a 1 because I didn't realize that you could actually bump up the speed on that. And once I figured that out, I was like, got it. We're good to go now. This is awesome. The other thing I think is interesting that you mentioned, and it's letting go of something good so that you can have great.
Mm.
I think that's hard for a lot of us to admit because it almost feels like you're ungrateful for what has been given to you and that you're not being a good steward of what has been given to you. Like somehow you're failing this experience by not allowing the other person to level up with you. But the problem is they don't often have the same desire, want, or goal that you have. And so you find yourself in this place of wanting to grow and expand and go past, way past where they, I don't like saying it that way, but you have this amazing goal that you want to achieve. And it's almost like they're keeping you stuck in this other place that, and it makes it impossible for you to be able to achieve that. And so you end up having to let go of something that was good for betting on yourself that you can create something great.
This has been a huge lesson for me, especially with social media and more opportunities coming in. Tony Robbins also talks about that. You have to get really good at saying no to the good opportunities and yes to the great opportunities, meaning great this is going to bring you closer to that overall objective, like the big vision goal that you have. And I remember being 15 years old and having a conversation with my dad. Like we were talking about college or something. He's like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, Dad. I don't want to do a traditional path. I need to change the world. Like that's always been my mindset. He's Shayla, like not one person can change the world. And I'm like, bet, try me. Let's
Did
do
you
it. It's on.
did you ever watch Varsity Blues?
No, I
So,
don't think so.
football movie with the dude from Dawson's Creek, and there's a scene in there where he's talking to his dad, and they're arguing back and forth, and he goes, "I don't want your life," in the most horrible Southern accent that you could possibly get out of somebody. But it's like that phrase stuck with me, and it's just actually don't want your life. I don't wanna have the experiences that you had. I wanna very much live my own life and the things that I think that I'm capable of, but you move through life with all these negative beliefs about yourself and about the world and what you think is possible, and people remind you all the time of what you can't do, but nobody ever speaks into you what you can do, and the
Mm,
fact that what actually anything really is possible.
mm,
As a matter of fact, all things are possible if you're willing to put in the work, to bet on yourself, believe in a higher power, and then continue to create momentum in that direction. You begin to realize that you can do anything. I'm proof of this. 2 years ago, I wasn't doing this. This wasn't on my bingo card. I had no desire to do anything like this, but I created an opportunity for myself that's allowed me to connect with people from all over the world, not only from a coaching perspective, but also because of the podcast. I've interviewed most of the people that are behind me that have written those books. And what a great opportunity that's been to be able to do something like, but I had to create that. I had to build that. I had to bet on myself. I had to say, you know what? You can do this. And
mm,
and you're worthy of
mm,
doing this.
mm.
And again, people love to remind you of all the things that you're not worthy of. You're not good enough. You're not smart. You can't do it. Because if I can't do it, then you can't do it. Other because I'd be living that life already if I could do it. It's a bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you brought up a lot of really great points. I think that was one of my biggest obstacles as well, is just being very sensitive to energies, very empathic. I can feel if somebody's looking at me thinking a certain thought. Oh, you're crazy. You can't do that. Silly girls. Boundaries. This was huge for me, putting up those energetic boundaries where, yeah, I might be tapping in energetically and able to feel what somebody's feeling, and it's not so great. And I don't want that in my energy field. So I'm going to set a boundary here. That energy is not allowed in. Doesn't mean I don't love that person, because unfortunately, this happens a lot with close friends and family members. But yeah, like I think making the identity shift, recognizing that, yeah, okay, if I
Ooh,
want to
that's
do
good.
big
Yeah.
things, yeah, I've got to change the way I identify with myself. That's the secret sauce. Yeah. And
It's really hard when you make that pivot. So you have this life before and you did all these things and it's who you were and you showed up to your 9 to 5 and there was all these policy and directives and a way of being in that world and operating and how you interact with other people. And then you have to become a podcaster and somebody who creates content on social media and now a YouTuber, right? And it's okay. Well, what does any of that really mean? And what's great about social media is you get to create what it means to you.
mm,
So it's whatever niche that you're in, whatever message that you're putting out. And oftentimes it's your mess that is your message. We talked about earlier about helping people who you used to be and you help elevate them to that next step. And it's not that you're miles ahead of these people or decades ahead. It's you're just a couple steps further along than they are.
mm,
And I think that's what makes social media so great is because you get to tap into what other people are doing in their life, and it makes things more tangible. Oh, I actually can do that because I see a piece of myself in that person, and they live a normal life, and they live in a normal neighborhood, and they do normal things, and it's not this some random person in a Lambo, like, that they rented that doesn't actually belong to them, but they have really good videography, so it makes people feel like you're miles behind everybody else and that you need to play this game of catch up, and it's, "No, you just need to be more of yourself and know who you are and have a direction and set some goals for yourself. Maybe create that vision board and allow yourself to start being consistent and disciplined in the areas that are going to help you achieve all of that.
yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah. So you're talking about power of social media. The cool thing about TikTok, like I essentially filmed my journey of starting from I wasn't completely rock bottom, but like when it comes to career, like I didn't have anything yet. I had a client sign on with me 2 years later this year. She's been following me since 2022. And that's exactly what she said. She's like, Shayla, like, I saw you like start out just as a tarot reader, like, let's happy go lucky, and then build this massive, like, 6-figure coaching business. I want to work with you. This is so amazing. And it always felt uncomfortable for me, like showing my mess. But people loved it. They're like, wow, my gosh, thank you so much. Suddenly I don't feel alone. So that was a huge lesson for me as well
Yeah.
in owning my backstory. Like, it's okay to go through things. It's okay to make mistakes. Actually, that's amazing. That's proof that you were out on the field trying, playing, putting yourself in a
Yes.
position to grow. Yeah. And that very act of you choosing to be vulnerable and showing that part of yourself may be an inspiration for somebody else to say yes to the path.
I can't thank you enough for being a part of the show today and sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. How can everybody reach you and work with you?
Yes, my website is my name, ShaylaKummer.com, and then on socials, TikTok, Instagram, @Lionessencee.